Back when I used to be a cast member at Walt Disney World, I would take my kids to Magic Kingdom every Christmas Eve. Here's why I did that and why I would never do it again, and you shouldn't either. Back when I started working at Disney World in 2006 and through 2010 or so, they actually used to allow their cast members to use their main gate badges to bring in family members, and they used to be good on Christmas Eve of all days. I was always kind of amazed at that because it's always been one of the busiest days at Magic Kingdom, and now I believe they actually have it blocked where cast members can't use their main gates. But at the time they did. We were at Disney often enough that we knew the parks well. My wife, because she's a teacher, treasures her vacation time. And so during the Christmas holidays, it was a time for her to rest and relax. Well, our kids at the time were young, around 8, 9, 10. It wasn't exactly a restful time when she was trying to stay home with the kids. And so I would volunteer if I was not working on Christmas Eve to take the kids. I actually had a few years in a row there where I ended up with Christmas Eve off. And then I ended up working on Christmas Day. But that's a whole nother story. So I would volunteer to take the kids since I was able to, and we would go to Magic Kingdom for the day and leave my wife home to rest and relax and kind of recuperate a little bit. We had a ball at Magic Kingdom, but part of that, a big portion of it, was because we came in with expectations of being able to do very little to nothing. During the 2 weeks around Christmas, between Christmas and New Year's and the days around them, are the two busiest times of year for Walt Disney World. In fact, New Year's Eve is the single busiest day. During most of those days, you can expect the parks to actually close their gates to guests coming in because they reach capacity. And depending upon the park, it may happen a little earlier than later. It's not unusual, for example, for Magic Kingdom to say lock their gates up at about 11, 11:30, and then typically Hollywood Studios would follow up a little bit afterwards, and even Animal Kingdom on many of those days. The only park that almost never did was Epcot because the amount of people it could hold was huge. So if we're going to go on Christmas Eve, I'd get the kids up early and make sure that we were at the park actually before it opened. We would be there ready to go when they first started letting people in the turnstiles and when they did the welcome ceremony up on the train station. We'd watch the welcome ceremony and know that we were beating most of the crowds that day because that was about the only way we were going to be able to do much. As soon as they actually let you into the park, we would be off, and typically we would head down towards Splash Mountain and Big Thunder Mountain. We'd grab fast passes for one of them, because this was the days of paper tickets. Grab the fast passes, and then jump over to the other ride right next door, because there wouldn't be much of a ride line yet. We could typically get one or both of them fairly quickly, and then we kind of got picky and choosy over what other things that we would do, because within an hour the lines would get huge. We might be able to catch another ride or two in that first hour or so, but after that we were looking for things that you didn't have a long wait on. Pirates and Small World were two great rides for that. Even on the busiest of days, which Christmas Eve was, its line would rarely be over 30 to 45 minutes for Pirates, or maybe 30 minutes for Small World. And so you could get into the line for that and wait and be on and off without too much of a wait, which on a really busy day was a good thing because the lines for the bathrooms would be as long as they were for those rides. No, I'm not exaggerating that. So it made it really nice for those. And then we would head around and we might catch a couple shows. For example, Mickey's PhilharMagic often wouldn't have a real long line. Country Bear Jamboree wouldn't. Carousel of Progress was a great attraction to go to, because again, the lines were little to none. Same thing with Tomorrowland Transit Authority or the People Mover. That was another one that you could pretty much guarantee that you might have a 5-minute wait, maybe, even on the busiest of days, and so you could catch a ride on that. So we would enjoy catching those things during the late morning and early afternoon. And then typically about an hour, hour and a half before the parade, that's when we would go find a place to sit. We loved to go to Frontierland because not as many people thought about it there, and we could usually catch a planter to sit on, so we'd have a fairly comfortable place to sit as opposed to being on the ground. And then when the parade started, if we really wanted to stand, we could. The parade was actually one of the big reasons we went on Christmas Eve, because they got a special Christmas parade. And I loved the Christmas parade with the March of the Toy Soldiers and all the special floats they had for it. It was one of my favorite parades, and it really kind of helped bring the Christmas season together. And it kind of made those crowds worth it, at least for us. Because the truth is, if I had had to pay to go on that day, there's no way I would have done it. I already mentioned the lines for the bathrooms. Yes, 30 minutes is a real line for the bathroom. The lines for the food would be about the same. It would literally be shoulder to shoulder. You'd be walking down the walkways like this, because you're bumping everybody and banging and smacking and getting bumped and rear-ended. And it was terrible to walk around in. We would deliberately take our time. I knew several of the walkways that weren't quite as popular, and so we would make use of those. But it was just tremendously crowded. I still don't believe they allowed cast members to use the main gates on those days. Even for eating, a line to get a meal would be anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour long. And that's at the counter service places. There was no such thing as ordering your food in advance because the app didn't exist at that point. It made it rather interesting. What I would actually do is we would bring in a couple small snacks, like a couple granola bars that we would tuck into pockets or something like that. But when it came time to actually eat a meal, I would actually park my kids, typically about the time we're getting ready for the parade, have them mark off a spot. Okay, guys, you're going to be okay. Wait here for me for a few minutes. And they were around 8 to 10 years old. So I didn't leave them for long, but they were old enough to know, stay there, don't move, protect the spot, and Dad will be back. And I would actually go backstage. I'd pull out my ID card, use one of the exits to go down into the utilidors, since I was an employee, and I would go to the Mascateria, which is the huge cafeteria that they have there at Magic Kingdom for the employees. And I would go into that line and buy Subway sandwiches or burgers or something else like that. And I would actually get the meals to go along with chips and drinks and other stuff, and then take it back out. It was faster than ordering in the park. It was cheaper than ordering in the park. And it was the best way to get the food, as opposed to paying out the yin-yang for same kind of basic stuff. Actually, a lot of times the food in the cafeteria was better. It was one cast member trick to help make the day more workable that was not available to most of the guests. And it made a big difference for us. And in fact, little things like that honestly made the big difference for the whole day. We often wouldn't decide for sure if we were going to go on Christmas Eve until the day before or a couple days before, because I would have no idea if I was working or not. So trying to make advanced plans could be really difficult for that. And it would be something, for example, with FastPass Plus now, would be pretty much impossible to make. See, if you're a cast member at Walt Disney World, there's no guarantee you're going to get any holiday off. So you can't plan to be at the park on a certain day most times, especially on holidays. Which means if we'd gone into the park this year on Christmas Eve as a cast member, there's no planning FastPass Plus ahead of time. You're planning it the night before, probably. And then you're getting leftovers of whatever's there. Oh, look, I got a fast pass for Carousel of Progress, which you don't need one for. Or for Mickey's PhilharMagic, which you don't need one for. And so you'd end up with these leftover fast passes that really probably aren't going to do you any good. There's no way to actually be able to get the better rides during a busy time like that. They're just not going to free up. So you can look at the big rides and say, forget it. And here's where the new Fast Pass system has really kind of hurt the park. We could do rides like Pirates and Small World on an extremely busy day back then. But now if you don't have a Fast Pass for it on a packed out day like that, forget it. That 30 to 45 minute line is going to be over an hour and a half long under the new system. And we didn't wait that long for anything because we were kind of spoiled. Goodness, even now I don't wait that long for anything. So it really kind of would have killed any opportunity to ride a lot of things or experience a lot of things that we might have on a spur-of-the-moment trip. So the new FastPass system really would have kind of killed that. Just because the way they distribute the new FastPasses, it makes the standby lines, which is your spontaneous lines, your, hey, let's go try that kind of line, and it just makes them so much longer than the old paper ticket system did. Especially when it's attached to all these rides and attractions that didn't used to have fast passes. And now if you don't have fast pass, you're waiting a long time, and especially on a capacity day. It's just a line that's not worth waiting in. And then dealing with the huge number of guests, it's not something I really like to do anymore. In fact, I'll be honest, I was always amazed how many people during Christmas had no clue that there'd be that many people there. There's this funny mindset among a lot of people that, hey, if we go to Disney during the holidays, nobody goes during the holidays because they're all staying home with their family. The parks will be empty because it'll be just us thinking of this great secret trick. Only to find out that 500,000 people thought of the same great secret trick. And because they're all there on school vacation times and things like that. When I say 500,000 people, I'm not exaggerating. When you start adding up how many people are at Magic Kingdom, at Hollywood Studios, at Animal Kingdom, at Epcot, at Disney Springs, at the water parks, and the other things just around Disney itself, it's probably right about 500,000 people just specifically for Disney. I know, isn't that insane? And they're shocked to find out that they're not the only ones who thought of it, and there's all these people everywhere and no room to walk and long lines for everything, and then they get mad at Disney. And oh, I had people that would yell at me in the stores and when I was shooting photos. Why are all these people here? This shouldn't have been like this. It should have been empty. What's wrong with you? How could you let so many people in? Well, they all thought of the same thing you did. Terrible time to go visit the parks. Not only is Disney have about 500,000, but then if you were to take SeaWorld and the Universal parks and all the other attractions, there's probably 750,000 people that travel to Orlando just for that time. And of course, if you spread that over 2 weeks, yeah, you're looking about 1.5 million people in 2 weeks. Yeah, it's insane. So anymore, I look at crowds like that and I'm like, you know what? I don't get paid to have to deal with them anymore, and I'm not going to. For me anymore, if I go to a park, I want to go on a day that there isn't a lot of crowds, that the lines are shorter. It makes it much more enjoyable rather than have to share it with half of the country, it feels like. I know it's not really that much, but it feels like it. And the honest truth is, even back then, the biggest reason I took the kids out on that day was because it didn't cost me anything because I was a cast member. I had free admission. I had some ways around some of the things like eating meals and not having to wait in the line for that and a couple things like that because I was a cast member. My wife really wanted the day out. Otherwise, I really doubt I would have gone on that day. I probably would have just stayed at home because that's kind of what I prefer to do on crowded days like that. Christmas in Orlando is a good time to stay home. It really is. So my wife wanting the time of rest had a big role in it. And looking back at it now, I love Christmas at Disney. It's outside of maybe Mickey's Not So Scary, Christmas at Disney is probably my favorite time. But there's no way I would go during those weeks. Your first 2 weeks of December during the week are wonderful because people are in school and they're not coming out of school at that point because vacation's coming up and they'll wait. The first 2 or 3 weeks of November are also fantastic. Again, because people are waiting for the holidays and all the Christmas stuff is there. So if you're wanting to experience Christmas at Disney, go your first 2 or 3 weeks of November or your first 2 weeks of December. You're going to have much lighter crowds. The weekends are still going to be really busy because all the locals go into the parks on those days. But your weekdays are usually pretty good. I just kind of had the same boat that everybody else was in, that my kids were in school and I couldn't exactly pull them out to take them to Disney when I worked there as local. So we went Christmas Eve. It was fun. We did a lot of people watching. We did a lot of sitting around just kind of looking at things and not doing anything just because of the huge crowds. But there's no way I'd do it again. So have you ever been to Disney during the holidays? Whether slow or a really busy time? I'd love to hear your experience. If you went on a busy time, did you like it or did you hate it? What'd you do? Were you able to do anything? Share it in the comments below. If you or family or friends are starting to think about going to Disney in the holidays too, well, don't forget to share this video with them and give them some advice. And hey, maybe share the video anyways. If you haven't subscribed yet too, make sure you hit that subscription button and hit the bell notification so you'll know anytime I've got new videos. Thanks so much for your likes and comments and everything else. I so appreciate it. Thank you as well to my patrons for supporting me. My patrons rock. They get early previews most of the time and a bunch of other benefits. If you want to know more about Patreon and supporting me, check the links below. There's also links there to my Facebook page, my fan group, merchandise, and a whole lot more. Thanks again for watching. Have a happy holiday season, and God bless. If you want to know whenever I have a new video out, well, hey, make sure you hit that button right there and subscribe. If you want to see another video right now, well, I've got a great one right here for you. And if you want to be like these wonderful people here and help support me financially on Patreon, well, check out that link right there and it'll take you to it. Thanks so much, and God bless.